The regime survives by repression, by complete blockade on information with the security services and field tactics.
North Koreans are abducted at birth, so they don't know the concept of freedom or human rights.
In North Korea, a curtain of secrecy conceals a punitive system infamous for its extreme severity and brutality. Accounts from defectors and human rights organizations have exposed a grim landscape of punishments meticulously crafted to stifle dissent and cultivate a pervasive culture of fear, thereby allowing the regime to retain an unwavering hold over its people. In this in-depth examination, we will journey through the 10 most alarming reported punishments in North Korea, providing a revealing glimpse into the deeply troubling human rights issues that persist within the nation. Number 10. Public executions. Public executions in North Korea have gained notoriety for their shocking and chilling characteristics, and while these reports primarily originate from defectors and are challenging to independently verify, they consistently paint a deeply troubling picture. These executions serve a dual role within the North Korean regime, functioning both as the most severe form of punishment for the accused and as a gruesome public spectacle deliberately crafted to sow fear and uphold stringent societal control. What sets North Korean public executions apart is the wide range of offenses that can lead to this extreme punishment. These offenses can vary significantly, spanning from acts that most nations would deem severe crimes like murder or espionage to actions that democracies might consider minor or even lawful, such as consuming foreign media or attempting to defect. This arbitrary nature of offenses resulting in such severe penalties underscores the extreme measures the regime is willing to take to assert its dominance. The manner in which public executions are typically carried out further emphasizes the regime's brutal control. These executions often lack any semblance of a fair trial. In many cases, the accused are denied legal defense, and judgments seem predetermined. The executions themselves frequently occur in front of large crowds, sometimes including the family members of the accused and even children. Public attendance is often coerced, with failing to show sufficient enthusiasm or attendance carrying the threat of punishment. The choice of locations for these public executions is also significant. They are deliberately chosen to be symbolic, often taking place in marketplaces, school grounds, or near riverbanks to maximize visibility and impact. The regime's intent is to etch the horror into the minds of as many people as possible, creating a collective memory that serves as a potent deterrent against potential future offenses. Despite the blatant violations of international human rights laws, which unequivocally denounce extrajudicial killings, public executions without a fair trial persist in North Korea. However, the secretive and isolated nature of the North Korean regime presents significant challenges for international organizations seeking to take effective action against these reported abuses. In summary, public executions in North Korea epitomize a gruesome means of control, akin to a macabre theater where the cost of any perceived disloyalty is exacted in the most extreme and horrifying manner conceivable. The overarching objective is to maintain the population in an unending state of fear and submission, wielding the specter of this ultimate punishment as a harrowing cautionary tale for all to behold. These acts represent a chilling facet of the North Korean regime's oppressive tactics, leaving a lasting impact on the collective psyche of its citizens. Number 9. Collective punishment and guilt by association. In North Korea, the principle of collective punishment is a draconian practice that goes beyond the conventional penal system. When an individual is accused of a crime or disloyalty, their punishment isn't limited to their own actions. Instead, it encompasses their entire family and sometimes even distant relatives. This approach reflects the regime's ruthless determination to quash any form of dissent and to assert complete control over its populace. The underlying rationale behind this system is to instill an all-encompassing fear that transcends individual behavior. The regime wants its citizens to understand that their actions can have severe consequences, not just for themselves, but for their loved ones as well. This understanding profoundly discourages individuals from speaking out against the government or challenging it in any way. This fear radiates through society, affecting social circles and friendships and effectively isolating potential dissidents. It fosters an environment where self-censorship becomes the norm as people are afraid to voice their opinions or grievances. The families of accused individuals often suffer the harshest consequences. They may be subjected to punitive measures, such as forced relocation to prison camps or remote, impoverished areas. In these places, they endure grueling labor, severe restrictions on their freedom, and a lifetime marked by social stigma. In the most extreme cases, there have been reports of family members being executed. However, verifying such claims independently is exceedingly challenging given the secretive nature of the North Korean regime. This system is designed not only to punish but also to permanently brand families as untrustworthy. It has a long-lasting impact that affects multiple generations. Children born into these families face a grim future, as they are often marginalized from mainstream society and severely limited in terms of educational and employment opportunities. This cycle of punishment establishes a powerful deterrent, reinforcing the regime's control over its citizens across generations. It's worth noting that the practice of collective punishment is widely condemned under international human rights laws, including the Geneva Conventions. These laws explicitly prohibit the punishment of individuals for actions they did not personally commit. Despite international condemnation, North Korea continues to employ this practice, seemingly shielded by its isolation and the limited capacity of the international community to intervene. In essence, collective punishment and guilt by association in North Korea serve to exacerbate the already severe system of punishments in place. By holding families and communities collectively responsible for the actions of individuals, the regime embeds a pervasive fear that extends well beyond prison walls and labor camps, solidifying its control over every facet of life in North Korea. It's a chilling and troubling aspect of the regime's rule that continues to draw international concern and scrutiny. Number 8. Forced labor. The issue of forced labor in North Korea is deeply pervasive and shockingly brutal, with a significant impact on the lives of numerous individuals. Numerous credible reports have shed light on the grim reality faced by tens of thousands of North Koreans, including both political detainees and ordinary citizens who are ensnared within this oppressive system. They are compelled to labor in various settings, which encompass not only notorious labor camps like Kwanliso, but also state-controlled farms and factories. For the North Korean regime, this system serves a dual purpose. It provides an essentially cost-free labor force while simultaneously serving as a potent tool for exerting social and political control. Conditions within these infamous labor camps are nothing short of deplorable. Detainees are forced to endure grueling work for extended hours in harsh and often perilous environments, including mines, logging camps, and agricultural fields. The physical demands of this labor are compounded by the minimal safety precautions in place, resulting in an alarmingly high number of work-related injuries and fatalities. To make matters worse, malnutrition is rampant, and access to adequate medical care is severely lacking, turning survival into a daily struggle for many detainees. These labor camps also function as sites for ideological re-education, where prisoners are subjected to intense training sessions that emphasize unwavering loyalty to the regime while ruthlessly punishing any form of dissent. In addition to the physical hardships, psychological torment is a constant companion in the lives of detainees. They live under the ever-watchful eye of surveillance and in perpetual fear of further punishment. Forced labor, however, is not confined solely to the walls of prison camps. Even ordinary North Koreans can be conscripted into various forms of state-mandated labor. For instance, during the agricultural season, citizens are often coerced into providing volunteer labor for farming projects. Similarly, urban residents may be mobilized for construction projects or other manual labor tasks as part of their socialist obligations. Failing to meet these obligations can result in punishments that range from fines to public humiliation or even imprisonment. Forced labor in North Korea serves multiple functions for the regime. It acts as a tool for punishment, inflicting severe physical and psychological suffering upon those subjected to it. Additionally, it serves as a means of ideological indoctrination, reinforcing loyalty to the regime while suppressing dissent. Moreover, it represents a valuable economic resource, as the regime benefits from the labor of its citizens without providing them any remuneration. The system is intentionally designed to dehumanize and break the spirit of those subjected to it, thereby quashing any form of dissent and perpetuating the regime's iron grip on power. The harrowing stories and well-documented reports that emerge from North Korea regarding forced labor paint a grim picture of a system that systematically disregards basic human dignity and rights in its unrelenting pursuit of absolute control. This issue underscores the urgent need for international attention and concerted action to address these severe human rights abuses, as they continue to afflict countless individuals in North Korea. Number 7. Starvation as a form of punishment. Starvation, whether inflicted intentionally or stemming from systemic failures, stands as another deeply disturbing form of punishment that has come into focus in the context of North Korea. While food scarcity affects significant portions of the North Korean population due to economic sanctions, mismanagement, and environmental challenges, it takes on a deliberate and sinister character within the confines of prisons, labor camps, and detention facilities. In these settings, food deprivation is employed as a calculated method to systematically weaken prisoners both physically and psychologically. Reports from defectors and human rights organizations have cast a revealing light on the extreme malnutrition prevalent in North Korean prison camps and detention facilities. When meals are provided, they are often so meager that they barely sustain life. Descriptions of a meal may encompass a mere handful of cornmeal or a watery soup with minimal nutritional value. This intentional underfeeding exacerbates the physical strain imposed by forced labor, creating a cruel cycle of declining health, diminished work capacity, and consequently even harsher punishment. This brutal tactic serves multiple objectives. Firstly, it weakens the individual to a point where resistance, whether physical or psychological, becomes nearly impossible. Secondly, the act of withholding food serves to dehumanize detainees, reducing them to a state where the primal struggle for survival eclipses all other concerns, including the capacity for dissent or any plans of escape. Beyond the confines of prison walls, the specter of starvation is wielded as a tool for compliance and control. Citizens often face food deprivation as a penalty for failing to meet state-imposed work quotas or engaging in activities deemed illegal by the government, such as participating in black market trading. Even in these contexts, food scarcity transforms into an instrument of state control, with the government having control over granaries that can be opened or sealed to either reward loyalty or punish disobedience. The deliberate use of starvation as a form of punishment blatantly violates numerous international human rights norms, notably including the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which expressly recognizes the right to access adequate food. Despite resounding international condemnation of this cruel practice, it persists unabated, serving as a stark testament to the extreme measures the North Korean regime is willing to employ to maintain its grip on power. This issue underscores the urgent need for the international community to address the severe human rights abuses occurring in North Korea and to advocate for the well-being of its citizens. Number 6. Harsh punishments. The punitive system in North Korea, as portrayed by defectors and human rights organizations, is an extraordinarily harsh mechanism deliberately designed to suppress any form of dissent and maintain unwavering control over the population. These punishments are not limited to actions that would be deemed serious in other parts of the world. They also extend to offenses specific to the North Korean regime's stringent regulations concerning information, mobility, and freedom of expression. Among the most draconian forms of punishment reported in North Korea are public executions, which serve as harrowing spectacles of state power. Typically carried out by firing squads, these executions are often conducted in public settings, intended to instill fear throughout the local population. The reasons for such executions can encompass a wide spectrum, ranging from charges of treason and espionage to less grave offenses like smuggling contraband or consuming foreign media. Public executions serve as a stark and chilling reminder to the populace of the potential consequences of defying the regime. Another grim facet of punishment is long-term imprisonment in labor camps, often referred to as conceals. Conditions in these camps are reported to be abysmal, with inmates subjected to forced labor in perilous environments. Malnutrition, the absence of medical care, and physical abuse are rampant, and regrettably, many prisoners do not survive their sentences, succumbing to the harsh conditions or facing execution. These camps function not just as a means of punishment, but as a formidable warning. The fear of being sent to a labor camp is employed as a method of social control. Corporal punishment represents yet another method employed by the authorities, with techniques ranging from severe beatings to water torture and stress positions designed to inflict both physical and psychological harm. In some cases, the family members of the accused may also suffer from collective punishment, whereby relatives, including children, can be sent to labor camps based on the principle of guilt by association. Moreover, repatriation to North Korea often results in severe punishment for defectors. Those who attempt to flee the country or are forcibly returned after escaping face interrogations, torture, and often prolonged imprisonment. This serves both as a punishment for the individual and as a deterrent to others contemplating leaving the country. In summary, the North Korean regime employs these severe punishments as instruments to sustain its totalitarian rule. The primary objective is to cultivate an atmosphere of fear that dissuades any inclination toward dissent or deviation from the norms endorsed by the state. Although these accounts largely rely on testimonies that are challenging to corroborate independently, the sheer quantity and uniformity of such reports depict an exceedingly troubling image of the state of human rights in North Korea. Now, it's time for today's subscriber pick. Hey there, curious minds! Take a look at this image. In this truly bizarre image, we find none other than North Korea's president, Mr. Kim Jong-un, in a rather unconventional scenario, standing alongside a nearly naked lady. Now, we all know North Korea has a knack for inventing unique punishments, but this one has left us utterly perplexed. What in the world could she be enduring as a form of penalty? Ladies and gentlemen, we're not just stumped. We're in dire need of your ingenious insights to help us untangle this enigma. Do you have wild theories or witty interpretations that might explain this peculiar scene? Share your thoughts and comments below, and let's embark on a collective journey to decode North Korea's most confounding riddle punishment. Number 5. Denial of medical care as punishment. In North Korea, the stark lack of access to adequate medical care stands as a deeply troubling form of punishment, often intertwined with other grave abuses such as forced labor and torture. Within the confines of the country's prison camps, labor camps, and detention facilities, the provision of medical care is shockingly insufficient and is frequently withheld, serving as an additional method to compound the suffering of detainees. Reports from defectors and findings from human rights organizations shed light on a dire situation. Prisoners who sustain work-related injuries, suffer from malnutrition or contract diseases find themselves with little to no access to medical services or essential medications. Even in cases of severe illness or injury, they are often coerced into continuing grueling labor, further worsening their condition and accelerating the deterioration of their health. The deliberate denial of medical treatment serves multiple sinister purposes within the punitive regime. Firstly, it operates as a form of psychological torture. The awareness that illnesses or injuries will not be addressed adds an additional layer of terror to an already nightmarish experience. Secondly, the absence of medical care can effectively act as a slow death sentence, a method of eliminating prisoners without the overt act of execution. From the regime's perspective, this approach consumes fewer resources than maintaining the lives of prisoners outside of the penal system. The denial of medical care is not confined solely to those within the prison system. It also extends to ordinary citizens who run afoul of the regime in various ways. For instance, individuals who fail to meet work quotas, voice criticisms against the government, or engage in actions deemed disloyal may find themselves or their families stripped of access to medical services. In a country where state-run medical facilities are already limited in their capacity, this can translate into a severe and potentially life-threatening punishment. The deliberate withholding of medical care serves as a brutal instrument of punishment and control in North Korea. By intentionally depriving prisoners and dissenters of essential medical services, the regime fosters a culture of fear and submission where even the most fundamental human rights are routinely disregarded. This form of punishment not only inflicts immediate suffering, but also leaves enduring physical and psychological scars on those subjected to it. It underscores the extreme lengths to which the North Korean regime is willing to go to maintain its iron grip on power. Number 4. Surveillance and psychological control. In North Korea, the machinery of punishment extends far beyond mere physical suffering. It encompasses an intricate system of surveillance and psychological manipulation that exerts profound control over the population. Going beyond conventional punitive methods, this extensive surveillance apparatus serves two primary functions: as a preemptive measure and as a psychological tool that encourages self-censorship, fosters distrust among citizens, and cultivates an all-encompassing climate of fear. Surveillance in North Korea leaves no aspect of life untouched, spanning from public spaces to the privacy of one's home. The regime employs a range of tactics, from human informants strategically placed in communities to advanced technological methods. Neighborhoods are meticulously organized into units responsible for monitoring the behavior of their members, creating an environment where individuals are under constant scrutiny from their peers. Even minor infractions can swiftly be reported to the authorities, potentially resulting in punishments that range from public humiliation to imprisonment. The psychological impact of this pervasive surveillance is profound. People live in a constant state of fear, always aware of the possibility that they are being watched. This heightened vigilance makes individuals extremely cautious about what they say, who they interact with, and even their innermost thoughts. This culture of surveillance penetrates family relationships and friendships, sowing mistrust within the very social bonds that typically provide emotional and psychological support. Furthermore, the regime employs more direct forms of psychological control. Public criticism sessions, often referred to as self-criticism sessions, are commonplace. In these sessions, individuals are coerced into confessing their perceived shortcomings and criticizing others. These sessions serve as both a means to induce fear and compliance, acting as a public humiliation tactic and a constant reminder of the regime's pervasive presence in every aspect of daily life. Another facet of psychological control is the ceaseless propaganda machine that glorifies the regime while vilifying external enemies. This creates a distorted reality in which the state is portrayed as the ultimate protector, making it psychologically challenging for individuals to question or rebel against the status quo. This Orwellian system blatantly violates numerous international human rights principles, including the right to privacy and freedom of thought. Yet it remains one of the most effective tools in the North Korean regime's arsenal for maintaining control over its citizenry. This underscores the fact that punishment in North Korea is not solely about physical suffering, but is equally focused on manipulating the minds of its people, ensuring their compliance through a pervasive culture of fear and surveillance. Number 3. Torture among others. Torture is yet another deeply unsettling method of punishment that has been consistently documented in North Korea, shedding light on the harrowing experiences of its citizens. While obtaining precise details about the specific torture techniques and their prevalence is challenging due to the secretive nature of the country, the accounts of defectors and the findings of human rights organizations provide a sobering perspective. Torture serves multiple purposes in North Korea, acting not only as a means of punishment, but also as an interrogation method and a tool for stifling political dissent. Physical torture encompasses a range of methods explicitly designed to inflict extreme pain and physical harm. Beatings are alarmingly frequent and are often administered using various instruments such as wooden rods, metal poles, and electric batons. Other methods include water torture, where victims are submerged in water to the brink of drowning, and stress positions that force individuals to maintain excruciating postures for extended periods. However, torture transcends mere physical suffering. Psychological methods are also ruthlessly employed to break down the victim's mental state. Sleep deprivation, forced participation in public humiliation sessions, and threats of harm to loved ones are among the psychological torture techniques reportedly used. In many cases, the objective is not solely to extract information, but also to instill such a profound level of fear that the victim becomes compliant, less likely to challenge or question the regime in the future. What compounds the horror is the absence of due process. Many of those subjected to torture have not been formally charged or granted a fair trial. Confessions obtained through torture are frequently used as evidence in sham trials, further entangling the practice within the judicial process. The lack of legal representation or any form of external oversight renders the interrogation chambers effectively lawless spaces where almost anything can happen without repercussions for the perpetrators. These actions flagrantly violate international human rights statutes, including the Convention Against Torture, to which North Korea is a party. However, the absence of transparency and the isolation of the country make it exceptionally difficult for the global community to intervene or hold the regime accountable. In this particular context, torture evolves beyond being merely a punitive measure. It transforms into an instrument for maintaining an environment of fear and compliance, which the regime deems essential for its own survival. The stories of torture survivors in North Korea underscore the urgent need for international awareness and action to address these grievous human rights violations. Number 2. Frequently cited by defectors, NGOs, and international organizations. Reports of severe punishments and human rights violations in North Korea have been consistently brought to public attention by a variety of sources. These sources primarily include defectors who have successfully escaped the regime, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, specializing in human rights concerns, and international organizations, such as the United Nations. While each of these sources offers unique insights, they frequently converge on the fundamental themes of extensive control and the severe punitive measures implemented by the North Korean regime. Defectors' accounts are particularly compelling as they offer first-hand experiences of life inside North Korea. Individuals who have escaped the regime describe a wide range of punitive measures, from well-known practices like labor camps and public executions to subtler forms of psychological torture and indoctrination. Some defectors have even recounted witnessing the execution or forced labor sentencing of family members as part of collective punishments. While defectors' accounts can be challenging to independently verify due to the closed nature of North Korea, the consistency in their stories collectively paints a compelling picture of widespread abuse. NGOs, including prominent international human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, have played a crucial role in gathering evidence and publishing reports on human rights abuses in North Korea. These organizations conduct interviews with defectors, collect satellite images of suspected prison camps, and compile information from other open sources to build a case for international action. While NGOs lack the ability to operate within North Korea, their rigorous research methods and global reputation lend credibility to their findings, making them a vital source of information. International organizations such as the United Nations also play a significant role in documenting human rights abuses in North Korea. For example, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, published a comprehensive report in 2014 detailing various forms of abuse, including those that may constitute crimes against humanity. These reports often serve as a basis for sanctions and other diplomatic actions against the North Korean regime. However, international organizations face the challenge of limited access to the country, which restricts their ability to conduct on-the-ground investigations. These organizations often encounter obstacles due to the secretive and isolated nature of the North Korean regime. Nevertheless, the uniformity of accounts from various sources raises serious concerns. The recurrent nature and similarity of these reports suggest systemic problems rather than isolated occurrences, emphasizing the need for international scrutiny and action. Whether it's a defector sharing personal experiences or an NGO presenting well-documented evidence, each account adds to the distressing picture of prevalent human rights abuses and harsh punishments in North Korea. Number 1. Reports of severe human rights abuses. The documentation of human rights violations in North Korea is a distressing narrative that has emerged from various sources shedding light on the deeply authoritarian nature of the regime under the leadership of Kim Jong-un. These accounts collectively reveal a regime that employs stringent measures to enforce its laws and uphold its ideological orthodoxy, creating an atmosphere of fear and repression. One of the most damning pieces of evidence regarding human rights abuses in North Korea is a comprehensive report released by a United Nations Commission of Inquiry in 2014. This landmark report meticulously details a wide range of systematic and egregious human rights violations, some of which amount to crimes against humanity. Among the grave practices documented are extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, arbitrary detentions, and torture. The report also illuminates the grim conditions prevailing in political prison camps, where detainees endure forced labor, inadequate access to food, and medical neglect. Public executions, often conducted without due process, serve as chilling spectacles intended to instill fear and obedience. Even seemingly innocuous acts, such as watching foreign media or engaging in unauthorized communication with outsiders, can result in severe consequences, including death penalties. In the most harrowing cases, women suffer sexual violence and exploitation, including forced abortions and infanticide. Children are not spared either, as they are subjected to forced labor and ideological indoctrination within schools, conditioning them for a lifetime of unquestioning loyalty to the regime. The secretive nature of the North Korean regime poses significant challenges to independently verifying the reported information. Nevertheless, the consistency of these accounts, originating from diverse sources including defectors, non-governmental organizations, United Nations agencies, and independent human rights investigators, paints a grim picture of the human rights situation within the nation. Addressing these concerns on the international stage is complex and delicate, especially given the backdrop of North Korea's nuclear ambitions. Balancing efforts to tackle human rights abuses while navigating the intricate diplomatic landscape surrounding North Korea's nuclear program presents a multifaceted challenge for the international community. It underscores the urgent need for careful diplomacy and coordinated international efforts to address both the humanitarian crisis and security concerns in the region. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and until next time, stay curious.